In this video, I want to speak about something that has had an absolutely profound impact on my self-confidence, on my self-worth, and just on my all-round sense of self. This concept is something that is really new to me, but in actual fact, it's very, very, very common sense. But maybe for you right now, it may be very uncommon in practice. And it's this concept of what we call a permission slip. Now, I came across this by watching a great YouTuber called Aaron Doherty. If you've not checked out Aaron's work, you must check it out. He's a phenomenal YouTuber. And this particular video that Aaron was talking about, he was talking about the power of permission slips. What a permission slip ultimately means is the ability for you to give yourself a permission slip, metaphorically speaking, to be, have, do whatever it is you want to do. You see, as a kid growing up, I found that my kind of permission to do anything, to be anything, was outsourced to other people. And you may yourself have that, within you. That may have been a very normal thing for you. Because as kids growing up, we obviously look to our caregivers, our parents, to tell us what we can and can't do. Then once we leave the home, we look to teachers. In our early years, we look to teachers, and then we look to maybe a boss, or we look to a mentor, or somebody that is older than us, or somebody that we perceive has more experience and has fundamentally a greater sense of self than we do. And we look to them to validate either an idea that we have, or an opportunity that we want to go for, or frankly, anything that we think we want to do. But because we've not done it yet, there's an uncertainty. So what we do is we kind of default to going to other people to give us that sense of certainty. And so what I want to do in this video is I want to kind of create a situation where I want you to think about something right now. I want you to literally right now think of something in your life where you maybe want to do something you want to do, or maybe some new way of being. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to imagine giving yourself the permission to do that thing. So let me give you an illustration to maybe help with this concept, maybe help get your brain ticking a little bit. So in my field of work, I do a lot of public speaking. And up until probably only maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago, my public speaking was always quite serious. Like I was always quite serious on stage. I was always quite intense. And truth be told, naturally as a child and into my early 20s, I actually was the complete opposite of that. Like I was actually not serious at all. I was almost at school. One teacher said to me when I was 4 years old, Miles is very immature for his age. I was 4 years old, bear in mind. I just want to clarify that I was 4 years old. And my point I'm making here is, as I've grown up, I've become quite serious because of the kind of personal development I've done, and I've got into deep stuff. And as a result, I've kind of thought, okay, I'm meant to be serious. But as I look back and connect the dots on my life, I recognize that actually some of my most joyful periods of my life were when I weren't being serious. In fact, one of the things I probably get the most enjoyment out of, other than the obvious things like hanging out with my wife and playing with my kids, is watching comedy. Like I have a show which I love called Impractical Jokers. It's 4 guys from New York, and they're just kind of messing around and doing pranks. And if you've never watched Impractical Jokers, I highly recommend you do. The funny thing is I've got a relative who says she doesn't like Impractical Jokers. She's like, oh, those guys are stupid. But yeah, when it's put on the TV, she watches it and laughs, right? It's quite funny. And they're really silly, right? They're just silly, boyish humour. Appropriate for girls too, just to be clear. Just want to put a disclaimer on that. But the point being is, my public speaking has become quite serious. Yet historically, like years ago, I used to do these videos before COVID, and they were really animated, and I was really enthusiastic and really high energy. I was like, Miles, this morning motivation. I was kind of crazy. But in actual fact, there were parts of that video I was wearing a mask. There were parts of that video where I was performing and putting on a persona, and I was generating a level of enthusiasm, but I was actually hiding another part of me that was more serious, more intense. And over the past few months, I've given myself permission to do both. And so by giving myself the permission to do both, what it's enabled me to do is recognize that I can be anything I want at any given moment. Like, I had got into a habit of thinking I need to always be serious. Yet years ago, I was in a habit of thinking I always need to be joking around. And now I recognize that I can be and do any of those things at any given moment. It can flip between the two whenever I want to, which for me is actually a real harmonious place to be, when you can really feel and experience all the plethoras of emotions. You know, it's funny. A relative said to me just the other day, I won't mention this relative's name, but said, you know, oh, I saw one of your videos and you seemed quite sad. And isn't it funny? Well, it's not funny, but pardon the irony, but isn't it funny that if somebody presents themselves on social media and in the way that they present themselves, they come across as sad, that to most people out in the world, that's seen as a bad thing, right? If somebody went on camera, like if I did a Facebook Live and was like deeply emotional and my eyes were glazed over and I was upset, isn't it funny that the general kind of rule of the population of the world is most people would be worried for me. Like they'd be worried, like, are you okay? Right? Because it's not the norm to show emotion of that variety on social media. But yet it's completely normal for a person to be in a bad mood and then post something on social media that represents themselves in their best light. But yet off camera, they might be feeling and experiencing something completely different. Like I know, I can guarantee it, there are people right now that are on social media who are deeply depressed, but are hiding it. And so one of the things that I've given myself permission to do over the past kind of 18 months, you know, it was about 18 months ago that I joined a men's group and started having therapy. And initially I kind of hid that, kind of kept it to myself. And, you know, this year I've gone back to church and I'm being baptized in a few weeks at the time of doing this video. And, you know, there's parts of me that up until recently I was kind of hiding. I wasn't showing off on social media. I wasn't showing them off on camera. And now I'm giving myself permission to do and be however I want. But more importantly, doing it from a place of not needing other people to validate it. Because that was the key thing for me, is that by outsourcing my approval to other people, it meant that I wasn't giving myself the permission to be anything I wanted to be and do, unless somebody else validated it. Like I wasn't giving myself the permission. Like somebody years ago once said, Miles, if you're going to do videos, you need to make sure they're niched. And I listened to that. Even the video I'm doing right now, when I put this into Reels, because I will, and this may be a reel that you're watching, the site that has the creation of the Reels will give me kind of grades as to how good they rate the video. And one of them is like around how targeted the video is in terms of attracting an audience. And on one hand, you could say, well, yeah, that makes business sense. You need to have a targeted audience and a niche, otherwise you will not attract clients. What if that's not the point? I'm giving myself permission to say and be and do whatever the hell I want on social media right now. And I couldn't really care less whether this attracts clients or whatever this brings. I couldn't really care less if people watch this video and it turns them off. But it's taken me a while to get to this point. And part of that has been me giving myself and making the decision to give myself the permission to be and do whatever I want, irrespective of what other people think of me. And that's a big place. I'm not going to pretend like it's been an easy place to get to, but there's a few things that I've found that are really important to help you get to this place. If you're watching this video and you yourself know that at an unconscious level, or conscious, you maybe are outsourcing your permission to do stuff or be a certain way to other people. Number one is meditation. Meditation is really key. And you specifically want to meditate with a visualization meditation. There are some good ones on YouTube. I might share one. If I can, I'll find one and share it in the link below. But visualization meditations are really powerful. Here's what you need to do. You need to write down or kind of put a note in your phone and describe in detail something that you want to do or some way that you want to act. Maybe there's a social situation that you want to show up. Like for me, my public speaking. I made the decision to close my eyes and visualize myself on stage having more fun. Because my public speaking had become quite serious. Because somebody said you need to be serious, right? But my public speaking lately, I've made the decision, you know what, when I go up there, I don't care what the audience think of me. I just want to have fun. If I'm going to be up there, it needs to be fun. Because if I'm not with my wife and I'm not with the kids and I'm not hanging out with myself or with my friends, if I'm going to do this thing, if this is going to be my mission, it has to be fun. It's got to be fun, right? So that's what I'm doing. So I'm literally going up there. Like the other day I was up there and I was telling jokes and most of them were really bad in my eyes, but they weren't bad. They were just me being me and they were just off the cuff and they were just in the flow and they were just without really thinking. And so number one's meditation, specifically a visualization meditation. You got to write down a situation or a way of being, ideally a way of being maybe in a situation, and describe in detail how you will show up. Like literally closed eyes and imagine yourself with that physiology, with the smile on your face, however it is that you want to show up, the ideal best version of you. You've got to close your eyes and you've got to meditate and see it. Because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Second, it's another form of meditation, but this time you want to do what we call an inner child meditation. The purpose of an inner child meditation, there's a particular one that I recommend on YouTube by a couple of guys called The Honest Guys. I think The Honest Guys, that's their channel. Put in Honest Guys Inner Child and you'll find it. But The Honest Guys do a great meditation. And this particular meditation, I go back to the flat where I used to live as a kid. And there's like a 5-year-old version of me kind of playing football. And I just go down on the field and play football with him. I hug him. I say words of affirmation. I tell him how amazing he is. We spend time together. Sometimes God jumps in because I'm a Christian. That's just the way I am. And then we end the meditation. I take him back to the flat. He goes up into his window. I wave him goodbye. I get back in my car and I drive home. What's really nice about that is every morning I spend that time, metaphorically speaking, with my inner child. It helps me to give myself permission to be how I was as a child, before the limiting beliefs, before the stories I've told myself about who I think I can and can't be. And that's a powerful place to come from. Because when you get to that point, where you're showing up as you did when you were a child, like unfiltered, then you go out into the world and then you come from a place of like, we have a little girl, Sage, who's almost 5, who is not filtered yet. Like she's literally like expressing herself without thinking, like saying stuff without thinking, doing stuff without thinking. And it's a beautiful place to be, right? Because the downside, the flip side of that is if you don't do this, then you may forever be in a place where you are second guessing yourself, as I have until very recently, and you are making decisions that you think are going to create a particular result that is going to be perceived as good or positive in the eyes of other people. And the problem and the danger with that is you may get the approval and you may get the validation, but it will never make you fulfilled. Like, I think I've mentioned this story before. Like, I had this unconscious thing years ago of like, oh, if only Tony Robbins told me I'm enough, I would feel enough. And then life will be great and I'll just go on and take over the world. Tony Robbins tells me I'm amazing. Then everything will be great. Right? And then he did. And then I went to an event, Business Mastery, and I got the opportunity to speak to Tony and say, Tony, you changed my life. And he said, I didn't change your life, you did, but thanks for the compliment. I'm glad my tools and programs helped, right? So You know, the thing that I thought I wanted, the approval of Tony Robbins, didn't really float my boat. It like was good for 5 minutes. Posted it on social media. Look at me, everybody. I met Tony. And then a day later, I was back to normal, and I was seeking more validation and more approval from other people, right? So, permission slips. You may want to print some paper out and maybe go to town on it and actually come up with some permission slips and write them down. Like when I do this, like this process, because I'm doing this video, I made a point of this morning writing some things down that I give myself permission for. Like, and I literally, I give myself permission to, I give myself permission to be. Like, and one of them was like, I give myself permission to be more expressive, more playful on camera, to show the dark, but also show the light. If I'm not feeling great, I'm not going to pretend, and I'm not going to perform like a dancing monkey the way that I used to do on video, right? And so permission slips, really powerful. And yeah, I just encourage you to try it out for size, see how it feels for you. And I would love to know. I'd love to know, like, if you do this and you feel a difference from the meditations, from the physical art of thinking and going, I give myself permission to do X. I'm giving myself permission to be this way. Like, if you do that, I'd love to hear from you, to hear how it works, how it feels, good or bad. I would just love to hear. So whether you can, whether it's you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, love to hear from you. Comment, let me know how it works for you. All right, that's it from me. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I've really enjoyed creating it for you. That's it from me. Peace out. See you tomorrow. Namaste.